How's it going, Giants fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. And wow, I did not see the Giants preparing to cut Blake Martinez yesterday. I want to react to that, give our explanation, give the info in terms of how much money the Giants are saving. What's the plan here? Who starts? Who's our linebackers week one? Because right now, I did not see this coming. We have some weak positions on defense, obviously in the secondary, but now linebacker is definitely one that has a big question mark. But there are reasons to believe that this is definitely part of a rebuild. And sometimes you got to play the young guys, you got to let them develop, and then next year you hope that they can be competent players, at least offer you some reserve depth or maybe even win starting jobs. And there's a couple guys that I have in mind that I'm sure Anthony will agree that can make some impact in the 2022 season. But let's start off just reacting to this Blake Martinez cut, because that one came out of nowhere. Clearly, he was falling out of favor, but he fit Patrick Graham's system like a glove, right? Big tackler, racked up 140 plus tackles with the Giants during his healthier seasons, and then got the ACL tear last year. Didn't really make a full recovery. It seemed kind of looked like he was a little bit slower. Hadn't heard much about him. He didn't get the captaincy from the players, and then bam, Giants had to make a tough decision. They had to get some cap space back, and they did with this Blake Martinez cut. But Anthony, when you first heard about it, what was your reaction to that? Because I definitely didn't see it coming.
No, I didn't see it coming either. Honestly, it was pretty shocking news to me that Blake Martinez, considering the captain that he was in 2020, he started last year as the 2021 defensive captain, and really just looking at how great of a player he was for the Giants in 2020 and how much they invested in his contract. It's very shocking to see them release him for non-salary cap reasons. Like, yeah, maybe they freed up, I want to say, was it 1.5 million, 3.5 at the most? It was somewhere in that really low number. They didn't do this to clear cap space. They did this because they just didn't want Blake Martinez on the team. And Blake Martinez personally didn't want to be here either. So the reports say it was a mutual decision between the two parties, which I guess is also kind of an interesting factor to keep in mind, that Blake Martinez really just didn't want to play for the Giants this year. So I guess why hold him hostage? And I think it really, you mentioned that he was a great scheme fit for Patrick Graham. Patrick Graham got the most out of him. I wouldn't be shocked to see Blake Martinez go to the Raiders now. Just go sign with the Raiders and play for Patrick Graham. He should. I think that would be great for him. I think that's the best way to revitalize his career. But Wink Martindale's defense is quite a bit different than the one that Patrick Graham was running. And the way that he uses the off-ball linebackers is definitely different. So I think Blake Martinez, taking a look at what he could have brought to the Giants this year, it wasn't what the Giants needed out of their linebacker position. So they've got some young guys on the roster. Hopefully somebody steps up, but it does leave a pretty big hole at linebacker right ahead of the first game of the regular season. Definitely concerning. So it'll be interesting to see how the Giants plan to supplement this loss.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a weird situation where now the Giants are kind of sitting here like, who do we use at linebacker now? Because I wouldn't even say Tay Crowder is a good scheme for Wink Martindale's system, right? They had Patrick Queen over in Baltimore, and he loves athletic linebackers that are fast, they're powerful, they can do a lot of different things. And, replacing Blake Martinez, I think you go with the young guys. The Giants did keep Austin Calitro, and they have Micah McFadden. Darian Beavers, I think, would have been starting if not for the injury. Torn ACL out for the year. But right now I'm looking at Micah McFadden as a potential guy who really gets those snaps. He's a really good blitzing linebacker. He can do some stuff. He's strong, doesn't have incredible, mobility laterally, but he has some really nice vision and does a good job collecting tackles in the running game. So his power, his ability to rush the passer is something that stands out to me, and one that I think fits Wink Martindale's system perfectly, right? Because you're looking at a system that really predicates itself on heavy blitz schematics, really overwhelming numbers to try and overcome opposing offensive lines. So I think that's kind of like what Wink Martindale's MO is, and I think that's kind of what Micah McFadden's MO is. Like, he's very good at blitzing from that position. But then Tay Crowder, right? Like, what? I don't really know what Tay Crowder's role is. He's not the Mike linebacker because Xavier McKinney is calling plays now, right? So you're talking about Tay Crowder's just a starting linebacker. And then you have, of course, Micah McFadden, who I think gets the majority of those snaps unless they go out and sign somebody. But Austin Calitro had a pretty solid preseason. Had a pick 6 in that last game, showed some pretty nice versatility. He might be someone the Giants, mix in there and see, kind of just play the hot hand. Whoever emerges as the better option, Calitro and McFadden, they just get the snaps. Like, maybe that's the route they're going to take. But what is your perspective? Like, who do you think gets the reps here? Do you think they sign somebody? Because right now it's a very thin group, but I think playing the youngsters probably makes the most sense in this first year of the rebuild.
Yeah, first year of the rebuild, you just go with the young talent and see if it develops into something special. I think Tate Crowder is probably going to be the starter at the linebacker position. He's got some experience. I do think he kind of fits that mold of Patrick Queen that you just mentioned. He is athletic, he is young, he is powerful. Is he a very good football player? No, maybe not, but he does kind of have that similar mold that you were just mentioning. And so Tate Crowder might fit kind of with what the Wink Martindale defense is looking for. And another player as well who totally fits that mold is Cam Brown. And I know Cam Brown is really more of a special teams player, but maybe we'll see him. Maybe we'll see him play a little bit more linebacker with Wink Martindale's scheme here, because that is a perfect mold. Like, that is exactly what the Giants are looking for out of their linebackers. And also keep in mind, Cam Brown did receive a captain's patch. He received it for the special teams unit, but he has one. He's got some respect, some clout in the locker room. Maybe he fights his way onto the regular season roster at the linebacker position. As I mentioned, he's young, he's fast, he's athletic, he's powerful. Those are the things that make him so good on special teams, but you could definitely see that being an avenue for him to get some playing time at the linebacker position as well. Carter Coughlin, I'm not sure he's the best fit either. I thought Carter Coughlin was kind of like a similar build to Blake Martinez. Austin Calitro, though, he showed up a couple times in the preseason and looked really solid. And same with Micah McFadden. Micah McFadden, I think, is probably going to be one of the starters at the linebacker position. I thought that when the Giants drafted him, he was a perfect scheme fit. That's why Wink Martindale was involved in the drafting of him. It makes a lot of sense. I really wish Darian Beavers didn't get injured. I think we could have seen a lot of him this season. But Micah McFadden is definitely the name to key in on here, because that was a Wink Martindale draft pick, obviously, and there's definitely a role and a usage for Micah McFadden in this Wink Martindale defense this upcoming season.
Yeah, I mean, also you kind of look at just the first team offense the Giants played in the preseason, right? They didn't play the first team offenses against the Bengals or the Patriots, but they did play against the Jets. And you want to know who stood out in that game? Micah McFadden. He forced a fumble against Michael Carter, their starting running back. So that was a big moment. You know, I think actually Austin Cletro I think he's the one that actually ended up getting the fumble recovery, which is kind of funny, but it's really nice to see that Micah McFadden made an impact against that Jets first team offense, against their starting running back. So that stood out to me. I think that, just that usage against those first team offenses is a big indication that he can stand his ground. But I don't exactly know how confident I am. Look, if this Wink Martindale defense ends up becoming very good and somehow, some way he ends up getting a lot of production out of these guys, I'll tell you what, he's probably getting a head coaching job next year, because with the group the Giants have on defense, they have a lot of weakness, right? They have a lot of weakness at secondary, a lot of weakness at linebacker. If he managed to put together a competent defense that can, turn the ball over and just be effectively blitzing and collect a lot of sacks, he's probably going to end up with a head coaching job. And then you're looking at the Giants turning their defense over once again. So I'm very curious to see how this kind of unfolds. And how Wink Martindale's defense does this upcoming year, especially because, they made some waiver wire claims, and you're looking at Justin Lane, you're looking at Jason Pinnock, you're looking at Nick McLeod. All these guys are reserves. None of them are really competing for starting snaps right now, but there are guys that are competing for starting snaps that did get claimed off the waivers. And one of them is Jack Anderson, that offensive guard that Philadelphia Eagles cut. He actually could end up in line to start at left guard. And the Giants actually replaced Blake Martinez's position with Tyree Phillips. Tyree Phillips. Don't exactly know how to say his first name, but 6'5", 345-pound kind of swing offensive lineman, right? 25 years old. He has reps at right tackle, right guard, left tackle. This preseason specifically, he spent 52 snaps at left tackle, 63 at left guard, and 29 at right tackle. He gave up 2 sacks. And 2 hits in his first game. But then after that, he was really, really good. He didn't give up any pressure. He gave up 1 pressure over his last 86 snaps, I believe. So pretty solid job from him. He did really well at left guard, which is a good thing for the Giants. And then he did really good at right tackle as well. So a guy that, coming over from the Baltimore Ravens with a 3rd-round pick back in 2020 out of Mississippi, pretty solid player. Clearly somebody that Wink Martindale knows, coming from Baltimore. He was there for 2 years. So probably got to see him a lot in practice, especially as his defense kind of challenged him. But someone that, the Giants just keep plucking guys from the Baltimore Ravens team. All of their castaways go to the Giants. It's actually a great method for the Giants, because they're rebuilding, and the Baltimore Ravens front office is one of the best when it comes to evaluating talent, one of the best at drafting, one of the best at free agent signings. They're just tremendous all around. If you can get their leftovers, you can do a pretty good job of building the back end of your roster. And the Giants have done just that. They've been plucking guys from them for the last 2 years, and this year specifically added a couple of players. But, Tyree Phillips, what are your thoughts on him? Maybe he'll compete with Jack Anderson at left guard with Shane Lemieux still battling injury. He's on IR for the first 4 weeks. And then, of course, you have Ben Bredesen, who's a little bit banged up as well, and Josh Azudu, who still needs a little bit more time to develop.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many injuries at that left guard spot, as you mentioned. Everyone's banged up. Shane Lemieux out at least the first 4 weeks of the regular season. You mentioned that Joshua Zeter's dealt with injuries and Ben Bredesen. So now you're looking at Jack Anderson and I guess Tyree Phillips. That's pretty much going to be your group there right now. It's going to be some sort of competition. I don't know. Maybe Azetu's healthy for week 1. Maybe he wants to get in the mix for that competition. But what I think of Tyree Phillips basically is that the Giants needed more offensive line depth, and they got it. I think that was one of their priorities after the waiver wire period. After the final cut day, Giants get down to 53. We went over the roster. We said they need to add some depth at tight end. They haven't done that yet, which I'm curious to see what happens there. They needed to add depth in the secondary, which they have done, and they needed to add depth at offensive line. So they're also moving on that. Maybe they'll do tight end next. But with the offensive line depth, I like what Tyree Phillips brings to the Giants because he has the ability to basically play every position except for center. He's played left tackle, played left guard, played right tackle, played right guard. He can move all over the place. You have an injury at any of those spots and you need someone to step in a pinch. Tyree Phillips can be that guy to step in that pinch and give you something quality. He's played quality football before. Is he a high quality? Is he elite? Is he, a stud? No, otherwise he wouldn't have been cut, right? He would still be on his previous team, but he was cut, was put on the waiver wire. The Giants signed him, and I do like this claim. I think this is a really solid claim. Am I, saying that he's going to be addition by subtraction with Blake Martinez? Is he going to be more valuable than Martinez? No, dude. Martinez was a bona fide star at one point. Like, he was a solidified starter. Tyree Phillips is like a solidified backup. And, another thing that we talked about recently over the past couple of weeks is who's going to be the swing tackle. That's not really like a glitz and glamour headline or a big question mark that everyone's dying to know the answer to. But it is important for the Giants to figure out who's going to be the swing tackle. And I think Tyree Phillips has the ability to move into that position. Again, having the versatility to play on the left or the right, move inside, move outside. That versatility is always valuable. Tyree Phillips, healthy with that ability. He's probably going to see some playing time in the regular season, whether that be at left guard or at swing tackle. But I really like this claim. Again, not saying that he's a better talent than Blake Martinez, but, for what we got back out of this release, I think Tyree Phillips is a pretty solid player.
Yeah, I mean, look, after Matt Gano, the neck issue, he had to retire early or leave the team early. He may never play football again. The Giants are kind of put in a weird spot. Jamil Douglas gets cut. Giants had to address the offensive line position one way or another. Jack Anderson and Tyree Phillips can immediately compete at left guard, which is exactly what they were looking for. 2 players who, while castaways from other teams, the Eagles always are finding great talent. They're very, very good at finding offensive linemen. And then the Ravens as well, very good at finding good offensive linemen. So, two teams that are really good in that facet. The Giants are just plucking and picking away from their castaways and their breadcrumbs. So I'm happy to see that they're at least trying to find ways that are efficient. Instead, what we did last year is we went and got Billy Price from one of the worst offensive lines in football, and he sucks. And go figure, you go and you pluck guys from the worst team in football or the worst offensive line in football, and the Bengals had one of the worst. Of course, you're going to have some struggles there, but I'm glad the Giants are kind of looking to the teams that have cemented and really good evaluation structures. And also, I'll point out Brandon Brown, our assistant GM, was the personnel director of personnel for the Eagles last year, so he knows Jack Anderson. He knows him very, very well. So I'll point that out and say, he probably knows a thing or two about what he can do. Very athletic, Jack Anderson. If you watch him, he can move into space. He's pretty strong. He's aggressive. He fits the mentality that we're looking for. Definitely might be competing for starting snaps. Do I like the fact that we have a waiver wire claim starting or maybe potentially starting? No, I do not, obviously. But I will say this. He offers more than what we had before. So, that's all I'm really looking for. And hopefully he can step up and make an impact with this team. But the last thing I do want to touch on before we sign off here is Blake Martinez's cap hit number. So cutting Blake Martinez opens up $3.6 million for the Giants in cap space. They were at negative $5.2 million yesterday. So that brings them up a little bit, but there's a lot of money going around right now. They're still trying to figure out the roster, trying to figure out exactly who they can restructure. Leonard Williams probably makes the most sense to restructure, which is unfortunate because we don't really want to be pushing money down the line right now. If the Giants did want to release Leonard Williams after this season, they would save $18 million in salary space, but maybe they add a void year to his deal and they just eat that money 2 years from now. We'll see how it goes. We'll see the strategy that Joe Schoen and the front office wants to deploy. But guys, always happy to offer you guys all this information. I hope you guys have some interesting perspectives below in the YouTube comments. Your thoughts on Blake Martinez being cut, your reaction to it, very, very interesting. Obviously, the Giants have added a few more players. So your thoughts on Jack Anderson, Tyree Phillips, some quality guys who might be able to develop and offer something to this Giants team. So always happy to hear your narratives and perspectives below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe. Have an awesome rest of your day. Have a fantastic weekend. And we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.